They told us monsters weren't real, that myths were just stories to haunt us at night. But I think they were wrong. Buried, locked, and hidden deep within the shadows of my family's history lie journals, not just ordinary journals. These writings whisper secrets humanity was never meant to know. Accounts of creatures that lurk just beyond the edge of our understanding. Beasts, legends, nightmares that defy explanation. Last season, we opened the first journal. We thought we were uncovering old stories. Instead, we awakened something. Now, more journals have surfaced. Pages soaked in blood, inked in desperation, hidden for centuries by those who knew too much. Each one pointing to monsters the world still refuses to believe in. But denial doesn't make them disappear. What you're about to hear is no story. It's evidence. Welcome back to Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. Season 2, The Snapdragon Files. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm excited that you're here. Prepare yourselves, as this season, we delve deeper into dark myths, more terrifying creatures, and chilling accounts that can no longer be dismissed. The line between legend and reality, it's long gone. But remember, once you've seen the monsters, they've seen you too. Shall we begin? All right, for those of you who are new to this podcast, here's a little background. A while back, my father passed and left me a key that opened a mysterious lockbox that once belonged to his uncle. Now, this uncle had a military background in all things that go bump in the night. Basically, if something paranormal or unusual or unexplainable needed to be investigated, my great uncle Samuel and his team were the first to investigate. Now, in this mysterious box just so happened to be intense, handwritten and typed journals chronicling every monster, every myth, every paranormal unknown, and unbelievably, a few surprises. Now, these fantastic documents were designated codename Project Black Garden, with each section within these reports were made up of different flower types. For example, roses, tulips, oleanders, snapdragons. I've decided to share these secrets. Every episode, a new monster, a new myth. Now, most of the names and places and dates have been changed to protect my family and myself, which is getting harder with every episode I release. But the one detail I don't dare change, and never will, is my great uncle's name, Samuel. He deserves to be known. He's earned the right for his name to live on. Through his journals, through my family's past, and now through my voice. So let's begin Season 2 with Episode 14, Case File 199. One of the most popular and famous myths and legends. Dragon. For centuries, they have haunted our legends, whispered through firelit tales, and carved into the stone of ancient ruins. Some call them myths, fantasies spun from fear. But what if the truth is far more terrifying? What if the dragons of old were real, and they never truly vanished? They may want us to believe that dragons are just myths, ancient lies to keep us afraid of the dark, of what lurks beyond the edges of our history. But myths don't leave behind scorched earth. Legends don't carve their shadows into the bones of lost civilizations. And fear, real fear, doesn't come from stories. This week's episode will open the door to the abyss. From the cryptic texts buried in forgotten tombs, to the eyewitnesses who vanished after speaking the truth, we follow the trail of fire and blood. And what I have found may change everything. Dragons are among the most widespread and enduring mythical creatures, appearing in folklore and mythology across many cultures worldwide. Their symbolism and characteristics vary widely, from benevolent beings to malevolent monsters. The concept of dragons likely emerged from a mix of real-world influences, including fossil discoveries. Ancient people may have mistaken dinosaur or large prehistoric reptile bones for dragon remains. Large predators, crocodiles, snakes, and other fearsome creatures may have inspired the dragon lore. In symbolism, dragons often represent chaos, power, wisdom, or destruction, depending on the culture. Eastern dragons' appearances are serpentine, long, often without wings, with deer-like antlers and flowing whiskers, with traits such as wise, benevolent, associated with water, weather, and prosperity. Famous examples are the Chinese dragons, divine beings controlling rivers and rain, or the yellow dragon that represented the emperor. Western dragons, their appearances are large, winged, fire-breathing lizards with spiked tails. Their traits are often depicted as malevolent, hoarding treasure and guarding caves. Famous examples are the medieval European dragons, slain by knights symbolizing evil and greed. Dragons have a long mythology and folklore, from the Chinese dragon kings that ruled over the four seas and controlled the rain, to the Greek and Romans, whose python, serpent dragon, slain by Apollo at Delphi, and Typhon, a monstrous dragon-like giant who battled Zeus, or the Hydra, a multi-headed serpent slain by Hercules. The Middle East had biblical dragons, the Leviathan, a massive sea dragon. In Jewish and Christian texts, representing chaos, but the dragons in modern culture, they remain popular in fantasy literature, films, and games. From J.R.R. Tolkien's Smaug from The Hobbit to Game of Thrones, where the dragons are depicted as intelligent and powerful creatures. Dragon symbolism can be defined in power and strength, wisdom and knowledge, chaos and evil, balance and nature. Now, in my great uncle's own handwritten words, is what happened on that unbelievable day. We were dispatched at 0400. No warning, no explanation, just orders. Secure the thermal anomaly beneath the Ross Ice Shelf. Now, this wouldn't be my first time to Antarctica. I actually hated it here. Too cold, too many polar bears. And for some reason, too much weird shit happens here. Anyways, my team 7734 prepared for another long day. Most of us thought it was just some geothermal shift or downed satellite. The public wouldn't believe just how often we lose those things. But the readings didn't add up. Something was moving down there. And whatever it was hot and alive. When the agency brass gets nervous, they send people like me, people like my team. I've seen the strangest things before. We've dealt with the most dangerous, the unbelievable. But nothing prepared me for this. We dropped in by chopper and descended into the ice tunnels, where the silence felt heavier than the gear on my back. Every crunch of snow underfoot echoed like a faint gunshot. After 30 minutes of searching, I found the tunnel, a spiral chute of frost and rock that pulsed with subtle warmth that didn't make any sense. Scotch, my second in command, nodded my way to draw my eyes to the walls, and we all took a moment and realized that the ice was starting to melt around us. At the bottom, the cavern opened like a frozen cathedral. It was beautiful in a way that made your chest tighten. Glowing crystals jutted from the ground, and mist floated like ghosts. And then, that's when I saw it. Tucked in the corner, just outside the failing light, sticking halfway out of the ice floor, was a crystal rock. But it wasn't a rock. It was the size of a basketball, but shaped more closely to a pointed egg, football-like. It reflected the same colors off the walls, and I'll be damned if it didn't have scales. I looked back at Scotch, his eyes wide, his weapon drawn, and I said, "Is that a goddamn egg?" He shrugged his shoulders nervously and whispered, "What did they send us out here to find?" And within seconds, we had our answer. Curled against the far wall, half hidden by frost, was a creature that shouldn't exist. A creature that, deep down, I always wanted to be real. It was smaller than I expected. Well, small compared to the stories we've been told, in the movies we have seen. Its scales were the color of frozen sapphire. Its eyes deep pools of light, haunting and calming at the same time. There was fire in its breath, but no rage. At least, not yet. I raised my weapon out of instinct, and so did the rest of the team. The creature shrank back, its large wings tucked tightly behind it. It wasn't roaring or baring teeth. It was still, quiet, focused. But to me, it registered as fear. And in that second, I forgot everything. Our orders, our protocol, the weight of command. The thought that the world's most dangerous mythological beast was in front of me, and by the looks of it, could end me and my team in a matter of minutes. But for some reason, I lowered my rifle and said, "Hold fire." Scotch huffed, immediately growing more angry than he needed to be. My newest recruits, Perez and Maximilian, followed my orders and lowered their weapons. But Scotch was known for being hot-headed and stubborn. He squeezed his trigger and fired a shot just past the right shoulder of the dragon. A warning, he said with intense eyes. The dragon let out a rageful growl filled with smoke and fire. It lunged forward, almost as if it was going to bite us in half. But before anyone else could get off another round, it retreated and bolted into the back of the tunnel, disappearing instantly. It was so fast. The heat spike on our scanners vanished along with it. We chased, but couldn't keep up. It was so fast. It disappeared into the ice, through crevices that were impossible for us to follow. Gone, like smoke in the wind. We regrouped and made our way back out of the cave. And in the sunlight, we circled up and discussed our next move. Perez fixed her ponytail and asked, "What are we doing? Are we killing it or capturing it?" I looked over my shoulder back down the cave and then up in the sky and let out a long sigh and said, "I don't know if we're going to be able to do either one of those things. Have you ever seen anything move that fast?" Scotch leaned in and said, determined, "Well, they don't send us here to make friends. Dead or alive, that thing's coming back with us." And just then, he pulled his arm from behind his back. In his grasp was the dragon egg. With wide eyes, I scolded him. "Soldier, why did you take that?" Scotch placed it in front of my face, daring me to take it from his grasp, which I did immediately. And he groaned, "Come on, Sam. You know we have to take it back with us. Gather all the intel we have. Make sure the site is safe." But for some reason, I couldn't shake the idea that what we had just seen, the creature, didn't seem malicious at all. Conflicted, I looked down at the egg in my hands. It knew what I had to do. Without hesitation, I turned around and made my way back into the cave and placed the egg back where we had found it. When I returned to the rest of my team, disappointed eyes stared at me. But before anyone could say anything, a fiery roar exploded from behind us, and on the mountainous ridge of the opening of the cave was the dragon. It clung to the edge with claws that stuck in the ice with force and a crack. Its wings looked even larger now as they expanded from both sides, ready to take flight. Its eyes and head gleamed underneath the sunlight. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Black smoke rolled from its nostrils, and fire seemed to drip from its jowls. And before anybody could raise their weapon, it took another step forward, and a blast of fire rained down upon us. It didn't reach us, but the heat made us all fall back in place. It screeched, letting the roar echo all around us. As we readied ourselves, weapons drawn and ready to fight back. Scotch fumbled his gun. Thankfully, because that hesitation was just long enough for us to realize what was really happening. From behind us, a giant shadow engulfed us, and I knew what it was instantly. I shoved Perez and Maximilian out of the way and screamed, "Polar bear!" It lunged forward, just missing me and knocking Scotch to the ground. His weapon skidded across the ice and snow, and in that moment, he should have died. But he didn't. Not because any of us saved him, but because of the mysterious dragon above sent a fireball directly into the chest of the polar bear, immobilizing it immediately. The dragon's wings retracted back, sending it down, diving towards us. It hit the ground just on the opposite side of the polar bear, its tail whipping past my face, just barely missing me. And with a thud, it smashed the polar bear's body into the ground, cracking its back and ribs in a sickening crackle and crunch. The dragon's eyes never left mine, and with a small grunt, it slowly walked past us, dragging the freshly dead carcass behind it with its tail. It disappeared back into the caves, only looking back once to make sure we weren't following it. I helped the rest of my team back up. No one said a word. We were still in shock. Scotch dusted himself off and realized his creature just saved his life. Maybe all of our lives. Finally, I pulled my eyes away from the image of the dragon disappearing back into the dark. And Perez asked, "So what do we do now?" I crossed my arms and looked over at Scotch. He took a moment to think about what just happened, and he surprised us all when he said, "We go home." I didn't see anything. Did any of you? With a smile, I patted him on his back and gave him orders to radio for our ride. When we got back to headquarters, and General Higgins read all of our reports, for some reason, he didn't believe what had happened. But we all stuck to our guns about what we had seen that day. Nothing. Just an ice cave and a polar bear or two. When the general pressed me for more details, I calmly asked, "May I be dismissed?" He thought about it for a second and said, "Okay, soldier." But I could tell he wasn't happy and he didn't believe me. And just before I left, I said, "Some things don't need to be conquered. Some creatures just want to be left alone. And some legends are better left alive." All right, listeners, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Season 2. Now, normally, this is the time when I give you an update on all the crazy stuff that had been happening to me since I released this podcast. And I do have some strange updates, but they'll have to wait for right now. I have a few things I need to work out before I make some of this information known. But I do hope to keep hearing from you all. It's one of my favorite things to read your emails and direct messages about what you liked and what you didn't like about the episode, but more importantly, of your experiences. I hope to tie in a few of these journals to some of the stories you have been telling me, because surprisingly, A few of you have experienced exactly what my great Uncle Sam had. So keep those ghost stories coming in. The sightings of Bigfoot and his friends. The monsters that don't make any sense, but you know are real, that you've seen. Or the lights in the sky. Or the visitors that everyone tells you aren't real and that it's all in your mind. Because here, on this podcast, you're all welcomed. You're all safe. Because I want to believe. Because what I've seen and what I've read is proof that so many of the myths and stories are real. So email me at pbgharvest@gmail.com or message me on Twitter or Blue Sky. And I can't wait to share some of your stories in upcoming episodes. But as always, my name is Michael, and this has been Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. Season 2, The Snapdragon Files. I hope to see you here next week when we tackle one of the most famous ghosts and myths. He has a dozen names, thousands of sightings, and has been around for a very, very long time. Join us next time when we tackle the Boogeyman. And as always, remember, monsters are real. And sometimes it's just best to let them live.